I work really hard to make videos for you all, so please subscribe to my channel and like this video. Also, make sure to tell me your name and where you are watching the story from. Let's start the story. I never thought a simple road trip could change the way I saw the world forever. When I packed my bags and tied them to the trunk of my black '97 Chevrolet Impala, I figured I'd spend a week chasing sunsets, drinking cheap beer in roadside motels, and listening to Bruce Springsteen songs that made wide America feel eternal. But something else happened, something far darker. This is not the kind of story that ends with a laugh about bad gas station food or oddball locals. No, this is the kind of story that leaves you wondering if the world you live in is as solid as you think, or whether something much older and hungrier moves in the shadows, waiting for unlucky travelers on forgotten roads. I will tell you what happened to me on Highway 191 in Arizona, a stretch of desert road that truckers whisper about, calling it the Devil's Highway. I don't know if you'll believe me, but I swear to you every word is true. It started on a warm May morning in New Mexico. I had been living in Albuquerque for nearly 5 years, spinning my wheels, working at a tire shop, daydreaming about the road and the stories it carried. Something in me wanted movement. I wanted to see the back roads of America, the real America people talked about. Dusty highways, neon lights, forgotten diners. I loaded up my old Chevy with a bag of clothes, a couple maps, a half-working GPS, and a leather-bound notebook where I supposed I'd write about the trip. I planned to follow Route 66 west at least part of the way, but detours have a way of finding you. They say in the desert, roads all lead somewhere strange if you're out at the right hour. By noon, I was already across the border into Arizona, the red earth crawling endlessly to the horizon, flat mesas cutting sharp against a pale blue sky. The radio was fickle out there, cutting in and out like voices arguing just outside of earshot. I shrugged it off. Then I saw the sign. It was a bent old road marker, bullet holes through the metal, the paint almost flayed by the sun. The sign read simply, 191 South. Beneath it, in cracked letters, someone had spray painted, "Don't stop at night." I laughed when I saw it, shaking my head. Probably punks messing around. But my stomach nodded without my permission. Out here, warnings felt heavier. The road stretched like an endless gray ribbon, cutting through a desert that seemed both alive and dead at the same time. I passed abandoned gas stations with broken glass windows, old motels where the neon hadn't lit up in decades, and the occasional dead animal on the roadside picked dry by vultures that spiraled lazy circles in the sky. One thing stood out, though. It was lonely. Not a single car drove past me for hours. The desert was mine, and mine alone. By dusk, I was still following 191 South, the sun bleeding orange over the mountains. My gas gauge dipped low, and finally I spotted a station. A rundown little place with a single pump and a flickering sign that just read, "Fuel." A man came out as I pulled in. He was gaunt, his gray hair hanging in wiry tufts, eyes sharp as broken glass. His smile was thin, without warmth. "You're traveling down the highway?" he asked, his voice dry like sand. "Yeah," I said, trying to keep casual. "Heading south?" He filled my tank in silence, then leaned on the hood. "Word of advice, don't drive it at night. Folks vanish out there. The desert don't give 'em back." My laugh came out weaker than I meant. "You mean car accidents?" He didn't blink. He meant vanish. There was something about the word. It followed me as I paid him and drove off, trying to shake the unease. Darkness in the desert is different than anywhere else. In cities, the neon buzz dulls it. In forests, the moon paints silver across the branches. But in the desert, once the sun is gone, the night is so absolute, it feels like the earth has been swallowed. I drove into that thick dark, my headlights spearing the void. The road seemed longer now, stretching beyond reason. The lines on the pavement wavered like they were painted fresh and never dried. That's when I saw the first shape at the roadside. At first, I thought it was a hitchhiker. A tall man, maybe 6 feet or more, standing very still with his back to the road. He wore what looked like a coat too heavy for the desert, black from head to toe. I slowed, my stomach tightening, and as my lights hit him, he turned. He had no face. Just smooth, pale skin where features should have been. I stomached a gasp, flooring the accelerator. For 30 seconds, maybe longer, I didn't breathe. My knuckles whitened on the wheel. Finally, I glanced into the rearview mirror, praying it was gone.
It wasn't. The figure stood in the exact same spot, frozen, like it had never moved at all. I drove for nearly an hour after the faceless man, every nerve in my body screaming to stop, every instinct telling me I couldn't. The desert was endless, mile after mile of black nothing, horizons eaten by the dark. And then, as if conjured, a speck of light appeared up ahead. At first, I thought it was a hallucination, a trick of exhaustion. But as the miles closed, the glow sharpened into a neon sign buzzing faintly against the night air. The Cactus Bloom Motel. Vacancies. It shouldn't have been there. I knew it. I had seen nothing for almost 50 miles. But I was too rattled, too tired, and too desperate for a place that wasn't the inside of my car. The motel looked like something out of the 1960s, a horseshoe of single-floor rooms, each with its own door faded from paint and sun. The office glowed with a single yellow bulb, insects throwing themselves against it in suicidal frenzy. Inside the office sat a woman behind the desk. She looked about 40, though her eyes were uncanny, gray, wide, as if she'd been awake too long. "Need a room?" she asked without looking up. "Yes," I managed, hands trembling as I slid her my card. She gave me a key, an actual metal one on a plastic tag, number 7, then leaned closer, finally meeting my gaze. Her voice was flat but deliberate. "You're on the Devil's Highway," she said. "If you hear tapping at your window tonight, don't look." I wanted to laugh or tell her to quit playing creepy small-town games, but her face had no humor, no hint of jest, just truth, cold and plain. I took the key and walked to the room. The door creaked as I shoved it open. The room smelled faintly of mildew, though someone had tried to mask it with cheap floral air freshener. The furniture was outdated, a TV with a clangy dial, a bedspread patterned in faded cactus prints, wood panels that seemed to sweat with years of desert heat. I dropped my bag and sat at the edge of the bed, head in my hands. My heart had not slowed since seeing that faceless figure. I could still feel its stare boring holes in me, though it had no eyes. I turned on the TV, but all I got was static, white noise pouring into the grim silence of the motel. After a while, I turned it off. The silence was worse. By midnight, I was lying fully clothed on the bed, staring at the water-stained ceiling. That's when I heard it. Tap, tap, tap. It came from the window at the far side of the room. A soft sound, deliberate, spaced, like someone politely knocking with a fingertip. I froze. The motel woman's words came back. "If you hear tapping at your window tonight, don't look." I told myself it had to be a tree branch, or maybe a stray animal,
but I had parked near enough the window to remember clearly there were no trees, no bushes, just a flat slab of dirt and asphalt. Tap, tap, tap. Softer this time, almost playful. My breath stilled. Sweat traced slow lines down my forehead. Minutes dragged like hours, every instinct pulling me to look, to confirm what stood there in the dark. I almost broke, but then it stopped. Just like that, the tapping ceased. The silence rushed back in, louder than any noise. I lay there staring at the ceiling, wondering if I had passed some kind of test. Sleep claimed me, uneasy and shallow. When I woke, the desert sun was already burning through the curtains. My mouth was dry as ash, my body sore, and something in me hoped maybe I had imagined it all. Until I checked the window. Outlined in the dust on the glass were 3 faint but undeniable fingerprints. Long, too long, almost double the length of mine. The woman at the front desk didn't ask how my night had gone, and I didn't offer it. She just slid my receipt across the counter and wished me safe travels, though her eyes said she knew the road was never safe. But I didn't feel like I had a choice. I had to keep driving.
The highway looked calmer in the daylight. Sunlight poured across the desert and painted the mesas in warm reds and golds. For a moment, I convinced myself the night had been a nightmare, a trick of exhaustion and paranoia. But then, the radio came alive. It started faintly, static, giving way to a whisper, low and broken, like someone speaking from 1,000 miles away. "Don't stay. Road eats." I glanced down at the dial. It was set to 97.1, a rock station I sometimes listened to. But it wasn't music, only static laced with murmurs, like multiple voices overlapping. "Keep driving, not safe." A chill ran through me. Something in the static had my name. My name. I switched off the radio, heart pounding. The silence left me with nothing but the rumble of tires on pavement and the desert wind pushing against the car. But silence wasn't comfort anymore, because now it felt like the desert was listening. About 20 miles down the road, I saw it, an old Ford pickup parked sideways on the shoulder, door hanging open. I pulled over, against my better judgment, because something about the stillness around it gnawed at me. No dust storm, no heat shimmer, just too quiet. The Ford looked ruined by time, yet out of place, like it hadn't gathered any real desert wear, as if it had just appeared. Keys still dangled in the ignition. I called out, "Hello? Anyone here?" The desert ate the sound before it carried 10 feet. Inside, the seats were cracked but empty. On the passenger side lay a map of Arizona, covered in scribbles. Circles drawn frantic in black marker, words written all over the margins. "Don't go south, don't follow the signs, don't stop at night." I folded the map and shoved it into my bag. As I turned to leave, something caught my eye in the dust by the car. Footprints, but not human. The prints were long, 3-toed, almost reptilian, each step embedded too deep, like they belonged to something heavy, but there were only 2 sets, side by side, leading back out toward the highway and disappearing mid-asphalt, like whatever had made them had been picked up. I didn't need more reason to get back in my Chevy and drive fast. By late afternoon, I was exhausted again. I hadn't seen another driver in hours, hadn't stopped except to stretch once or twice. My gas tank dipped low when finally I saw it up ahead, a green highway sign. Silver Cross, 12 miles. It was like an oasis for my nerves. Civilization, food, gas, people. Proof that the world wasn't just empty desert and faceless horrors. I followed the sign, heart lightening, and within minutes, rooftops appeared ahead on the horizon. Silver Cross, a cluster of buildings, small but promising, sitting squat in the desert like it had been there forever. But as I pulled into town, all hope drained. Silver Cross was abandoned. Not in the usual rustic way where ghost towns sit with bleached wood siding and tumbleweeds. No, this place looked wrong. Buildings too clean, too intact, like people had left that morning. Dishes sat in cafe windows, unfinished meals rotting in the open air. A barber chair spun slowly as if someone had just stood. The silence was suffocating. I whispered, "Hello?" Something answered. Not from the diner, but from the far end of the street. A long, low groan, like wood bending under weight or a breath escaping some massive lung. The sound dragged closer. I bolted back to my car. My door slammed, my engine roared, and I peeled out of Silver Cross like the town itself wanted to keep me. In my rearview mirror, I swore I saw something step around the corner of one of the buildings, and then it waved. By nightfall, I was too shaken to trust sleep. The sun bled down behind the desert, and I told myself I would drive through until I found another real living town with real breathing people. But somewhere near midnight, I glanced into the rearview mirror. There was someone sitting in my back seat. At first, I thought my eyes were playing tricks, but no, shadows don't breathe. Shadows don't lean forward.
My gas gauge had no right to still be above empty. I'd been driving for God knows how long, yet the needle hadn't moved. That was when I realized something was off. The highway wasn't running on the same rules anymore. I wasn't burning gas. I wasn't moving through normal space. The car 8 miles endlessly, but where those miles led was not Earth as I knew it. The desert had changed again. The sky above wasn't the same vast star field. Instead of white pinpricks, there were streaks, like scars across a black canvas. The moon sat bloated and red, swelling with each curve of the road. The land was no longer mesas and hills, but jagged spikes of stone, jutting like broken ribs from the earth. The Devil's Highway was bringing me somewhere it had always been. Somewhere along that distorted stretch, I saw a light behind me, a single headlamp. At first, relief bloomed in my aching chest. Another driver. Another soul trapped on this cursed ribbon of asphalt. But relief didn't last. The motorcycle drew closer, its engine roaring too loud, louder than any Harley or cruiser should. Then I saw the rider, draped in tattered black leather, his skull bare, no flesh to cover it, flames whispering at the edges of bone. He wasn't chasing me. He was escorting me. I tried to speed up, to leave him behind, but no matter how fast I went, that blazing skull figure stayed exactly 1 car length back. I couldn't outrun it, couldn't escape it. Finally, it pulled alongside, bony hands gripping rusted handlebars, and it turned its skull to me. Hollow sockets radiated with firelight. "You're almost there," the rider rasped, voice cutting straight into my chest. "Don't stop, not now." Then, Just as suddenly as it had appeared, it veered off the road into the darkness, swallowed whole. The highway spilled me into a hollow valley soon after, the air heavy with silence, too thick to breathe. Lining both sides of the road were wooden crosses, hundreds of them, thousands maybe. Each one bore what looked like personal belongings: hats, boots, shredded shirts, dolls, photographs. Travelers, all of them. People who had come this way and never gone back. I slowed, staring wide-eyed at the endless grave markers, and then I realized some of them had names carved into them. Names I recognized from missing persons reports in the Southwest, from newspapers and radio stories years old, and then, worse, I saw my own name carved on one. Splinters of rotting wood etched with crude lines. My name, 2025. My throat closed. The road had always known me. It had been waiting. The air shimmered, something massive stirred in the valley. At the far end of the crosses, the asphalt sank into a pit of shadow. No lights, no stars above it, just a depthless black, sucking everything inward. From it rose a figure. Not the faceless man, not the rider, something larger, something that wore the desert, stitched from its stone and wind and silence. Its body stretched like a man's, but swollen, sinewy, with a void where a face should be. Its chest glowed faintly, pulsing like a lantern, and within that glow I swore I saw people, faces screaming, travelers' souls trapped inside it. Its voice didn't come through the air. It came through the road, through my hands on the wheel, through the vibration in my bones. You've come far, too far. The road belongs to us, and now you do too. I floored the accelerator, though the Chevy shook like it was tearing apart. The headlights cut into the darkness, and the figure stretched taller, arms lifting as though it could pluck the sky clean. The asphalt just ended. No winding curves, no exit ramp, only a cliff of raw black. The car screamed on its axles as tires shredded. For a second, I thought I had driven into nothingness. And then, white. White light. I blinked, blinded, my ears ringing. When vision cleared, I was sitting in my car at a gas station, a real one. People were refueling, buying snacks, kids running to the bathroom. Morning sunlight painted the lot gold. My car was perfectly fine. Full tank, no dust, no scratches. But when I looked at the station's glass door, I saw the reflection of myself, only not me. A faceless version, standing, waiting. Everything looked ordinary, too ordinary. Cars honked, morning sunlight stretched clean across the horizon, and the world carried on as though nothing on that cursed highway ever happened.
For a flicker of a moment, I almost let myself believe it was over. Then I saw it again. The reflection in the glass door of the mini-mart. Me, or something wearing me. Faceless, taller than I was, its pale outline pressed against the window, though no one inside the store noticed. It lifted a hand, fingers impossibly long, and pointed directly at me. The glass fogged under its touch, and words scrawled themselves into condensation. Still
on the road. My stomach bottomed out. I stumbled inside, desperate to ask someone, anyone, to confirm I wasn't losing my mind. But as I stepped in, I noticed something strange. The conversations around me didn't match the movements. A clerk stood behind the counter, lips moving in greeting, but no sound came out. A mother scolded her son, but her voice was muffled, distorted, wrong. And then, before my eyes, they blurred, smudged like ink spilled in water. One by one, they dissolved into the air, fading until the mini-mart was empty. The only sound, the hum of the cooler fans, dropped into silence. I was alone. Again. Except for the tapping from the window. Tap. 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 It was at the glass now. The faceless man, pressing against it, forehead leaning to the pane as if he wanted in. Only this time, he wasn't outside. Behind the reflection, behind the glass, was the devil's highway, stretched on forever. I ran back to my car, heart frenzied. My keys jingled in my hand, but when I tried to start the engine, it was already running. The gas gauge stayed full. The road ahead shimmered. Not asphalt anymore, but that same endless black ribbon crawling under a desert sky too wide, too dead. I could turn back, abandon the car, abandon everything, but where would I go? The station wasn't real, towns weren't real, people weren't real. The only thing that seemed real anymore was the highway. And I understood then, that was the real trap. All travelers reached this point. Either step away and be swallowed into silence forever, or keep driving, carry the highway inside you and let it keep growing. It didn't want bodies. It wanted witnesses. I gripped the wheel and drove. Headlights cut open the night as the real world vanished like mist. I was back on the devil's highway, where I had been all along. And as I drove, I saw them. Every traveler who had ever taken the highway stood along the shoulders, staring, rows upon rows of hollow figures stretching further than sight. Some faceless, some skeletal, some with eyes burned black. They all watched, waiting for me to pass, to join their silent legion. I pressed my foot down, the engine groaning, trembling like it would burst. And I drove, while the road whispered in my mind, "You never leave. None of you leave. You carry us now, forever." I don't know if I escaped. Some days I wake in cheap motels with cactus print blankets, swear I hear tapping at the window. Other days I drive through cities, eat burgers at diners, pay tolls, but the road is always there. Behind every reflection, beneath every radio static, etched in the edges of my vision. I don't bother telling people anymore. No one believes the Devil's Highway exists. They call it superstition. They laugh at the nickname. But I know, because I am still on it. And now that you've heard my story, if you ever see a sign for Highway 191 in Arizona, with paint weathered and holes chewed through like bites, be smart. Turn around. Because once you take that road, you'll never really leave it again.